Good morning, everyone. We are on C-SPAN, and we're also live streaming on the Making Every Vote Count Facebook page, so I want you all to behave. The Electoral College is a disaster for democracy. Now, that's not me speaking. That's Donald Trump. Or it was Donald Trump before he changed his mind a few times. He also said this: I would rather see it where you went with simple votes. You know, you get 100 million votes, and somebody else gets 90 million, and you win. Now, I quote him not for irony, but because A, he's right, and B, his affinity for the popular vote may reflect his instinct that a president who is elected without winning a majority is perhaps not so legitimate. Think of all the factors that have contributed to voter cynicism and alienation, of all the measures that we could institute to help restore confidence in democracy. This is the one that can be easily and quickly remedied and have an enormous impact. Suddenly, everyone's vote would count the same, truly one person, one vote. Voters all over the country, not just in Florida, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, would determine the outcome of the election. Now, Americans are very close right now to changing the system, to having a popular vote for president. But how would such a system change American political campaigns? That's why we're here. So welcome to a conference called When Every Vote Counts. I'm Jim Glassman. I'm a member of the board of directors of Making Every Vote Counts, a nonprofit organization whose aim is to educate Americans about their electoral system. This is a nonpartisan effort. I'm a registered Republican. I served as Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy in the George W. Bush administration, and I headed President Bush's Policy Institute that's part of the Presidential Library in Dallas. We have Republicans and Democrats and independents on our board, all concerned about the future of democracy under our current electoral system. In 5 elections, 2 of them since 2000, we have elected presidents who were defeated in the popular vote. And if Donald Trump wins again, it's highly likely that his election will be the 6th and the 3rd in 6 elections. Americans, by an overwhelming majority, reject the current system. We know that from polling that stretches back for decades. The latest survey in July by Andrew Klaster found that 71% of voters nationally say that the candidate who gets the most votes nationwide should be the president, and only 21% oppose the idea. Among Republicans, there's a majority of 61 to 32. That's a 2-to-1 majority, nearly. And whether we should change the rules, with that phrase, change the rules, which a lot of people don't like, so that the candidate who wins the most votes becomes the president, U.S. voters agree by a margin of 65 to 26, again with a majority of Republicans agreeing. And Andrew Klaster has polled many states, as have others, including bright red ones, and gotten similar results. For example, North Dakota. There aren't too many redder states in North Dakota. And there, 64% of likely voters, including 55% of Republicans, agree that the candidate who gets the most votes nationwide should become the president. We also found that a majority of North Dakota voters polled would vote yes in a ballot initiative that said that their electoral votes would go to the national popular vote winner immediately in the 2020 election, as long as a blue state with the same number of electoral votes also approves such a measure. Think about that for a second. We know that the current system is not how we should approve our leaders, should choose our leaders. Millions don't understand it, and it deprives millions more of a meaningful vote. In fact, 100 million Americans don't vote for president at all. But can you blame them when just a dozen, or maybe just 4 or 5, will determine who that person will be? We choose all of our other elected officials the same way. Whoever gets the most votes wins, and every person has an equal vote. Why don't we choose presidents that way? Mainly because the framers could not agree, so they punted. They left the choice to the states. Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution says, each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors, etc. The Constitution does not specify the criteria for that appointment. And in the early years of the Republic, many state legislators themselves did the appointing, not the voters. Now, every state but 2 chooses electors the same way, with the winner of a vote within the state taking all the electors. But over the past several decades, red voters and blue voters have become more and more concentrated by state. Few states are purple, in contention, and candidates focus only on those states. And when presidents get elected, they shower those states with attention and, in many cases, money. We see this over and over. In 2016, there were 399 public campaign events. Some 94% of them were in just 12 states. The other states had 3 or fewer events. The majority of states had 0 events. There are several ways to reform the method of electing a president. A number of Democratic candidates for president have said that they prefer a constitutional amendment. Maine has enacted ranked choice voting for the 2020 general election. Under a recent 10th Circuit Court decision, electors can decide without regard to the wishes of the voters who they want to be president. And 15 states plus the District of Columbia have passed the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, which goes into effect when it is law in states that account for 270 electoral votes. So far, the total is 196. This change in the way we vote, backed by a solid majority of Americans in surveys, is close to becoming reality. It is now a matter of only a few years until, in every race, the person who gets the most votes will become president. So we decided it was time to take a look, not at the merits of the popular vote, but at how presidential campaigns would actually be run if the person who gets the most votes nationwide is the one who becomes president. There is a lot of mythology around this question, let me tell you. So, what are the political implications? What are the campaign mechanics? And we have just the right people to do it. So, today's agenda, very briefly, we have a first panel coming up here in just a few minutes, few seconds, that will examine how will candidates try to win under a national popular vote, moderated by my good friend, longtime friend, Steve Clemens, editor-at-large at The Hill. The second panel, how will candidates' messages and platforms change because of the popular vote? That will be moderated by Bob Cusack, the editor-in-chief of The Hill. That will be followed by a keynote address by Nellie Gorbea, the Secretary of State of Rhode Island.